thing that threw me the most is that I walk into this room and there are like 3 chairs. There's like a desk chair, a sofa, and an armchair. And then the first question was like, where do you want me to sit? And they're like, you choose. And I was like, oh no, this is the test.
No way.
I was so stressed about choosing a chair. So I can't remember which one I chose in the end, but after that I was on edge.
Hi everyone, this is the Oxford and Cambridge Project, the podcast that aims to make Oxbridge accessible by lifting the veil on the secrets of 2 of the most prestigious universities in the world. I'm Opportune Simon.
And I'm Kleopatra Kyprianou. Today we have with us Minnie. Minnie is currently a journalist at a prominent women's lifestyle magazine. She graduated from Mary Edwards College in 2018 with a degree in Modern and Medieval Languages, otherwise known as MML, in French and Italian, before going on to a master's in journalism. Minnie is from Portsmouth, England, and decided to study MML as a way to embrace her love of languages while getting to explore lots of art and culture as well.
Minnie has spent her year abroad in Paris, working for a fashion magazine as a translator, as well as studying at the École Normale Supérieure and interning at an e-commerce startup. She will tell us about her uni experience and her experience with various extracurricular activities, such as drama, journalism, netball, and being part of society committees. Hi, Minnie.
Hi.
So good to have you.
Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. Very honoured to be here.
Yeah, you're an honour to this podcast, so thank you so much for being on. Are you excited about today?
Yes. This is all I've ever wanted to do, to tell the world about my experience at Cambridge University. So,
well, I think the world has been waiting for your experience.
To hear your story.
I think so.
I think we're ready for it now.
Let's get
ready to hear.
Straight into it. So, Min, you studied at Mary Edwards College, a great college.
Best college, some may say.
Some might say that, and we would definitely say that.
Yeah, including us.
Seeing as we also studied at Mary Edwards College,
no
and we actually met there.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, Min, would you like to start by talking to us about what drew you to applying to Cambridge? Maybe give us a bit about your background in high school and just how you got interested in modern languages and I guess just, languages as a whole.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the first thing is, more than anything, I was just good at languages. So that was something that I was attracted to studying it for that reason to begin with. But so I went to school in Portsmouth, went to the same school from 4 to 18 and was always pretty much an all-rounder. I liked loads of different subjects, maybe not physics, but everything else.
Who likes physics anyway?
Yeah. So I did a lot of subjects and I did end up doing the IB at sixth form because I wanted to continue doing a lot. I did French, Spanish and English at a higher level and maths, chemistry, philosophy at standard level. So basically MML, what really attracted me to the Cambridge course in particular, especially even over Oxford, is that it's super flexible. There's so many different elements you can do. So you can keep learning languages. And I was really, really into learning languages. I'd learned French since I was 4, really loved it. But also a lot of the course is literature, film, art, history. So yeah, I could basically do an English literature degree in another language, which is great.
That's so smart. I've never thought about it like that. It's very holistic in terms of arts and
Definitely. It feels like 5 degrees in one, which is exactly what I wanted. And I studied Italian from scratch at university. It's ab initio. So had to get to A-level standard in a year, which was intense, as it sounds.
How many languages can you study?
You can do, you go in with 2, but I think now also you can do a language and history, maybe and English as well. You couldn't do that when I was there, but I think you can do that now. But in second year, you can pick up a module of a different one, like Dutch or Catalan, Portuguese. So there's opportunities for other ones as well.
That's cool. Seems like it was quite a natural choice for you to pick that course. Was it also a natural choice to pick Cambridge? Did a lot of thought go into that, or?
I think it was one of those things where it was just kind of assumed. My brother is 6 years older than me and he went to Oxford. So I think part of me was like, oh, obviously I'll go to Oxford because that's where my brother went. And if he does this, then I'm going to do it as well. But then when it got to deciding, I looked at the courses and Cambridge seemed a bit more flexible for me, at least. It's what I wanted to do. So I decided to go there. I applied to a lot of other different universities as well, some really good universities. But yeah, Cambridge just seemed like a really unique experience that I wanted to try. So yeah.
And what made you obviously like were a fan of French and you had been studying that since you were little, but what made you pick Italian over other languages?
Honestly, maybe pasta. That might have been the reason.
That is a great reason.
I think, well, they're both languages of love and like there's so much culture, I grew up going to Italy a lot. Like my family really loves Italy. We'd go there a lot on holiday. I'd go see loads of art. I'd go eat a lot of food, and I really liked talking to the people there in my very broken Italian that I knew. I studied Spanish up to A-level standard at school, so having French and Spanish made Italian kind of an easy language to start on, at least, because they're all Romance languages, same family, so I could understand it a bit, which is always great when you're starting a new thing if you like understand a little bit first. So yeah, it felt like a really natural choice for a second language.
So for sure, it's not like the course just teaches you the language in itself, but you feel like you also pick up a lot of the culture around it and maybe the literature.
Yeah, I was just saying to Op earlier, I can quote a little bit of Dante's Inferno now, so that's all you need. But yeah, the Italian course also went a lot into art history, which I really loved. And one of the highlights of Italian, at least in first year, is that we got to go to Florence for a week or so, I think it was 10 days, to learn at the British Institute there, to learn Italian with some teachers. And yeah, I just stayed in a little apartment with my friends and we just had a great time in Florence, looking at the art, eating food, and yeah, that was a real highlight for sure.
That's really nice.
Yeah, I'm sure, like, obviously you travel so much with the MML course. Like, if that Florence week in first year was a highlight, I'm sure that your third year spent abroad for the whole time was also a major highlight.
Yeah, a little bit. That was also, to be fair, a reason why I wanted to do languages. I really wanted to live in Paris, so that was a good way of doing it.
Can you tell us more about just all your year abroad, how you got to plan it, and what you actually did?
Yeah, so I feel like mine sort of the plans weren't really complete until pretty late on in the process. You're meant to have it done quite far in advance, but that's not how I work as a person.
So by that you mean second year, or? Yeah,
it was in second year. You do a lot. I think at the beginning of second year you have to say what your plans are provisionally, and then you sort of firm it up as the year goes on. So I applied in March or April for an internship at Vogue Paris, and it was a 6-month internship I was translating the website from French to English. And yeah, so I applied for that and got that, which was really great. So yeah, I did 6 months there, from August to February, staying in a really cute, tiny apartment in the Latin Quarter of Paris, which was amazing, with one of my best friends from my course. And then after that, I started studying at the ENS, the university, like you said. Studied there for a term, and I got to do things that I wouldn't have necessarily been able to do at Cambridge. I studied a bit of history that I hadn't done. I did a bit of art history, and actually a course in English literature, which, was fun.
In France.
In French. So, and then when that was done, I could have gone home, but I wanted to stay in Paris as long as possible to really get as much French as I could. So I did an internship at an e-commerce startup called Paris Shopping. That is now, I think, gone, but, I had a great time. I was translating there as well, translating the website into English. Yeah.
Nice.
It's such a nice feature of the course that you do a year abroad when you study MML. So just to clarify, it is a 4-year course.
Yeah.
And everybody has to do a year abroad then?
Yeah,
That's how it
everyone has
works.
to. I think a lot of people go into it a bit anxious, and to be honest, not everyone has a great time when they're year abroad, especially, if you're going to a really far out place in the middle of nowhere. Some people thrive in that environment, but obviously a lot of people, it causes a lot of anxiety. I felt very lucky that I had some great friends in Paris, the ones that I went with, and also made a lot of friends there. Not necessarily French friends. I made some French friends from my work and studying, but there's a big community of other people in their year abroad from different universities. So within like a week, I'd met a lot of people from like Warwick and UCL, like other universities, and we formed a little group where we'd hang out a lot. So I didn't feel like I was alone at all. It was really nice. Yeah.
And did you have, or I guess like, does the university or certain colleges give you, I don't know, like financial help or just tips with how to get on your abroad?
Like support when you're planning it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they'll give you some support. I think that will vary by college in terms of how much support they can give. I think I can't remember how much support I asked for, but my director of studies at the time was really, really helpful, really friendly, so I'm sure he would have helped if I asked. And then while I was there, you get, in terms of financial support, at the time we had an Erasmus grant. I'm not sure what the future of that is going to be or is at the moment, but that was like a maintenance loan. So I still had my student maintenance loan from the UK government, which was really helpful. And then the Erasmus loan on top of that helped me to, live there, which was really good. And yeah, the university was available for contacting. There's a year abroad office in the MML department in Cambridge. So you can email them. I emailed them a couple of times and they were really quick to help sort some things out, especially I think with the university. But yeah, in general, you're on your own, but there's people you can contact if you have to.
Yeah, so I guess the third year really brings a lot of opportunities, especially if you know what you want to do and if you want to straight away plan for that internship or that academic experience. But what about if you're not sure or if you think you want to travel to different places and have different languages? What can you do then?
Yeah, I mean, that is something that's really important to mention, is that you can split your year abroad. Most people do split their year abroad. I think I was in the minority staying in one place. I know I think almost every other university you have to go to both of your languages countries, which is great. Like for Spanish, you can go to Latin America, you can go to Mexico, whatever. France, you can go to Madagascar. Like if you really want to, like you can go rural Quebec, like wherever. So a lot of people will split those two. Like I have friends who spent half in Paris and half in like southern Spain in a flamenco school. Wow. Maybe not doing the flamenco, but they work there. And yeah, some people who like studied in Spain and then went to work at a gallery in Italy. Like there's so many different opportunities, and that is a really good way of just exploring and working out what you want to do when you finish university. Maybe you might discover you have a passion for art by working in a gallery and then go on to do that. So yeah, really depends.
And I'm guessing there's never any issues with like someone liking their year abroad so much that they want to kind of drop out. Has that ever happened?
I'm not sure. I don't think it happened in my experience. I mean, people did extreme things. People like get married on their year abroad sometimes. I know a lot of people who've found like long-term partners from the year abroad. I personally was not successful in my hunt for a French boyfriend, but that's a shame. It's fine. But yeah, there's people get really into it for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. I remember us doing our third year, having dissertations and just being super stressed, and then you guys were all in like Paris and
we're just drinking rosé by the Seine.
Well, also us having a little break during, I think it was Easter holidays, where we went to visit you.
Yeah, you came for my 21st birthday. That was nice.
It was great memes.
It's definitely like a big life experience. I feel like sort of throwing you into the real world for a bit.
And I've never lived in a city, but Portsmouth is a city, but I never lived in a big like capital city. So I went from Portsmouth to Cambridge, which is tiny, to this massive city, like traveling on the tube every day to work. It was crazy, but I loved it.
Yeah, it sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And it's good that it happens in third year, so, you're a little bit older by then, you've got some experience, you know the language relatively well.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be like 18 and just thrust into this crazy new place.
Yeah, that's what I did. You can survive. Well, that's what you did as well. But
it's different in a university setting and actually having to work, so...
yeah, and I think like doing this as a third year kind of gives you a sense of the real professional like world, but then you go back to fourth year, and I think I'm a really big proponent of like working before going back to studying, because I feel like that can just focus you so much. Did you feel like you benefited from that third year on the fourth year?
Yeah, it definitely gave me a new perspective on what I was doing. I think part of it was that I had fewer people around in fourth year, so less distractions. It wasn't the same like crazy party atmosphere as it might have been before. A lot of it was down to the fact that a lot of people in my college that I was friends with from first and second year had graduated. So I had a lot of friends left from my course around the university, but it was less of a big party atmosphere than it might have been before that. So I was automatically more focused.
Yeah.
Being that little bit older means, you want to actually work for the first time, well, not the first time, but you want to actually get something out of it. And I think I felt really grateful to be in Cambridge, back at university, and like having this opportunity to learn. So I'm not saying that I was the perfect student. I definitely was not, definitely was late on a lot of deadlines, but I think I was a little bit more focused than I was before.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I wanted to ask as well. So, for example, with Italian, you said you hadn't done it for A level. What sort of are the criteria to get into Cambridge for MML? What did you need?
I needed 2 languages at school. So I had French and Spanish. So I think, as long as you have 2 languages to an A level IB standard, maybe even AS for one of them, I'm not sure, then that should be enough to prove that you want to do more. Because a lot of people will continue those 2 languages. Most people, I think, won't start a new one. They would have just done like French and Spanish, or whatever languages they were studying. So doing one from scratch is not obligatory at all. I just wanted to. No.
I thought everyone had to do a language that they already had done and then another one ab initio.
No, a lot of people would just do 2 post A level languages.
Okay.
So I did one from scratch because I just wanted something new, something different, and just have another language on the belt, which is always good.
Makes sense. So you had to write your personal statement.
Yes.
Like everybody does.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm guessing you got invited for an interview.
I did. How did you know?
I know, right? So was that like the first time you were visiting Cambridge during your interview? Or?
I had visited that summer with my mum, briefly. I think it was an open day. I looked at a few colleges, not Murray Edwards, but some other ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I really loved it. And I think I was pretty set on applying anyway. I probably would have applied even if I hadn't been. But that was really good to just get a feel of the city and find out how nice it looks and how small it is. So then I was invited for an interview.
Which college did you apply?
I applied to Trinity Hall, which is a really small college. It's a great college. It's on the river, really beautiful.
It's one of the oldest, no?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's quite underrated.
It's very underrated. I love Trinity Hall. Like, it was such a...
It's really pretty. The library looks onto the river. It's really beautiful. And it had some good lecturers there at the time that I wanted to learn with. So that's why I applied there. But it turns out the year I applied, lots of other people did. I think there was 42 applicants for 6 places or something.
Wow.
That's intense.
Yeah. So obviously I did my interviews and was put in the pool system after that.
And I just have 2 questions preceding the interviews.
Mm-hmm.
One is maybe a stupid question, but do you write your personal statement in another language?
No, thank goodness.
Well, maybe it would show. Could you do that? Do you think that would work?
That might. The thing is that you're applying to you send that personal statement to all of the universities, I feel like some of them will be like, what is this? Or it could just like show up any glaring errors. To me, that's what I'd be thinking. But I
think it's more about why do you want to study this subject?
Yeah.
And what do you bring into the course rather than just proving you're good at the language?
It's also because a lot of the course is literature, like I said, and it's analysis, and you're writing all those essays in English. So I think they want to check that you actually can write well in English, and the language is bit you can learn essentially, like you can get better at French or whatever. But if you're already okay at writing essays, then that's good from their perspective, I think.
And my second question was, does the combination of language or languages matter when you apply? Do they kind of want you to select some languages or not? Or
I don't think it matters too much as long as you have the experience or can prove an interest in it. See, like I did Italian. I had French and Spanish, which proved I liked Romance languages. A lot of my personal statement was that, you know, I felt like Italian was the obvious third choice to do. Like that's the obvious next language for me to learn. I know a lot of people who did Russian from scratch, and I think they proved it just by saying they were really into Russian literature, or like they really loved visiting Russia in the past. So it just depends if you can prove you have an interest, or that it would be an easy one, not easy, but an obvious choice, then whatever. It doesn't make any difference.
Cool.
Did you have some sort of like admissions test when you went for your interviews, or was it just like 2 interviews?
Yeah, so I had 2 interviews. In between, I had a test. I just completely forgot about that. I blanked out. I think I quite liked it. It was just a translation from French into English, so it wasn't too hard. I think maybe there was a comprehension element as well. But yeah, I remember translating, it was a piece of prose about poetry. And I think there were a few questions. There were a few questions we had to answer about the text. Just like really simple, like, so who said this? And, you know, those kind of comprehension questions that you're used to in school.
So it wasn't like way too challenging. It was just to demonstrate that you actually do have an understanding of the language.
Yeah, I don't think it's like the maths and science ones that they get, which sound impossible.
It wasn't more like testing your thinking. It was more...
It was like, do I know French words?
Yeah.
Can I read?
Exactly.
And what about the interviews themselves? How did they go?
So I had 2 interviews. The first one was for French, and the 2 people were so nice. They were the nicest. There was a really lovely woman and a really lovely man, and we spoke about why I wanted to do French, my, you know, experience with learning it. Part of it was we looked at a text. I can't remember what the text was, but yeah, I read it. I read a few sentences in French. I think a lot of people are worried that they're going to have to speak a lot of French in the interview, but it was pretty minimal. We spoke about that text in French for a bit, and then I think there was a little tiny bit as well, but most of it was in English. One thing I would say is that it's very basic advice, but don't lie on your personal statement. I didn't lie. Well, no. I had said that I had watched a lot of films in French and Italian. I think maybe I had like 5 years ago, like kids' films or something, but I really wasn't well versed in French film at that point. So when it got to the interview, I had completely forgotten that I'd even said that. So he was like, oh, so, you know, it says that you've watched a lot of films. You know, what's your favourite French film that you've seen recently? And by sheer luck, I had watched one French film the week before because I was babysitting and they had Netflix and Amélie was on it. And I was like, oh, I've got a Cambridge interview next week. I should watch a French film. Completely forgetting that I'd said that I'd watched any. So luckily I could bring that up, and I was like, oh, Amélie is my favourite. I love it so much.
And Amélie it's a classic, but it's a bit of a twisted movie as well.
Yeah, it's weirder than you think. It's a great film though. So luckily I could speak about that, and we did speak about that in French for a bit. Otherwise, we used to watch a film in French class about L'Écoiste.
Well,
yeah,
very classic as well.
Very classic. I watched that about 5 times during school, so that was my second choice. But anyway, don't lie.
I think that's really good advice. And it's not just don't lie, but also just don't put anything you're not prepared to speak in detail about. I remember I had put down that I went to like a seminar at a London university or something at some point, and then that was their first question, and I just remember blanking, like,
it's definitely
remember what we spoke about at the seminar.
Anything that you're mildly unsure about will be their first question, because they know you're going to be unsure about that, and they're going to want to prove
just
it.
Just reread the personal statement
and
make
exactly.
sure
you're
willing to talk about everything that's on there.
I don't think I even spoke about my personal statement in either of my interviews.
Wow.
But that's funny.
So that was the French interview, and then the Italian interview was scarier for me personally. I think partly because I had no idea what they were going to say, because I didn't know any Italian. But it was in a dingy room. That was the first part. Also, the thing that threw me the most is that I walk into this room and there are like 3 chairs. There's like a desk chair, a sofa, and an armchair. And then the first question was like, where do you want me to sit? And they're like, you choose. And I was like, oh no, this is the test.
No way.
I was so stressed about choosing a chair. So I can't remember which one I chose in the end, but after that I was on edge. And yeah, that I think was basically just asking why I wanted to study Italian. I think I blanked a bit on why I actually wanted to study Italian, but yeah, it was a discussion. I think the professors were German professors because they didn't have an Italian person at Trinity Hall at that time. But yeah, that was scarier. After that interview, I was walking around. Well, first of all, I bought myself a hat from Topshop to cheer myself up. Yeah, exactly. I was like, right, I've been through that, I need a hat. And then I remember like looking down at the pavements, like, don't look at the nice buildings because you're not going to get in, and you don't want to make yourself sad by looking at and seeing how nice they are. Yeah.
But I guess you were happy from the first one, it sounds, but maybe it was the second one that threw you off a bit.
Yeah, I was happy, but also at the same time being like, oh, I didn't say this, I should have said this differently, like all of that. Like, obviously, everyone's going to be doing that. I think if you walk out of a Cambridge interview thinking you absolutely smashed it, maybe you didn't smash it, I don't know. But, yeah, essentially, I think you just can never tell. I know a lot of people who interviewed and didn't get in, even though I was pretty sure, and still am sure, that they're a lot cleverer than I am. So you basically just have to hope and not assume anything. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a filtering process. There's no right or wrong answer sometimes. Like, any of the people that are interviewing could go on and be really successful at Cambridge, but they just have to find a way to select. So
yeah, and a lot of people will go and be super successful, even more successful at other universities, or not university at all. So yeah.
Exactly. And so I guess from after that interview, you got a letter saying that you had been pulled from Trinity Hall. And do you remember a bit how that process went, or?
I don't actually remember getting the letter. Oh, it was an email. I was at a cafe with my mum and my sister. I got the email saying I was pulled, and I was like, oh no, but then I had some banana bread, it was fine. And then I think that was almost Christmas, like week before Christmas time. And then, I wasn't devastated. I was like, that's fine, I still have a chance. It's not the end, it's not the worst news. And then, so it was early January when I got a phone call, and it was from Mari Edwards, and they were calling to say that I had a place for me there. And I have to say, while they were calling me, I went straight to the computer and Googled Mari Edwards College because I had not heard of it. But I looked at the photos and I was like, yeah, sure, that sounds great. I'll accept the place. Nice. Because obviously, it was a Cambridge college. I was thrilled. So yeah, after I put the phone down, did a lot of research, found out what Mari Edwards was. Found out they didn't say on the phone that it was an all-girl college, all-female.
Well, you wouldn't lead with that. But...
Yeah, you wouldn't be like, I'm Mari Edwards, an all-female college, and we'd like to give you a place. No, but I found out and I was like, interesting. It's not what I was going for, but, I was still super, super happy. So yeah, that was great.
So it didn't throw you off or put you off the fact that it was just girls?
No, it didn't. I didn't for a second think, oh, maybe I shouldn't go because of that. I went to a mixed school and I knew, there would be boys at Cambridge. I would be learning with them. It wasn't it definitely wasn't a deal breaker. It's obviously a different experience, but no, it didn't put me off.
So I feel like I definitely want you to give the listeners a feel for what Murray Edwards is. Obviously, we've already mentioned the biggest thing that people know about the college, which is like because it was created after World War II to bring more women into, you know, Cambridge and the institutions.
Yeah.
It's an all-females college, but can you describe the college to someone who's like never been to Cambridge?
And I think it's important to mention that you know, you just live in the college. That's where the library is, the gym, whatever. That's where your accommodation is, and it's just females. But then when you're at supervisions or lectures, you know, you're interacting with your peers that are mixed. So it can actually be a nice living situation to just have girls.
Oh my god, 100%.
I'll let you talk about that.
So the feel. So obviously it was created out of this position of inequality, and there is such a like feel of like female empowerment. Like that sounds really like cliche, but it's so true, like from the first day. And it's self-identifying females as well, which is important to point out. And it's built on these like great feminist foundations, and you're like, wow, great, I'm so happy to be here. A lot of people didn't apply there directly for a lot of different reasons. I think maybe they hadn't heard of it, but yeah, so I think partly because of that is it makes it a little bit more relaxed, like than some of the big colleges where there's this huge academic pressure. I felt like at least like Medwards had less of that academic pressure and had more emphasis on trying to, you know, create a good atmosphere and happy atmosphere as much as possible. I mean, there's a lot of art on display. We have, I think, the largest collection of women's modern art in Europe, or second largest.
I think it's the largest in Europe and the second largest in the world after the Met or the MoMA. I'm not quite sure.
Well, it's amazing. Like you walk down the corridors and you've got like Barbara Hepworth sculpture. You've got I can't remember the other name of that very famous artist lady, but you know, there's some great stuff. It's really like unique. There's some giant beetles that lead you down the stairway. There's like a picture of a man in a bathtub, and yeah,
I remember that one.
Yeah, it's very interesting. You can stop every few meters and just
but you compare that to like sitting in this grand hall in a big old college and looking at these like old white men on the wall like staring down at you. Like the difference is really, really refreshing. And really, like, it doesn't feel stifling at all. Apart from the very brutalist architecture. It's like, also, one thing to note is that we have, I think, the best brunch in Cambridge. It was voted, so...
It was definitely the best brunch. And I think also the quality of the food, like, every day in general, was actually
really
one of
good.
the top colleges.
And there's always, like, a vegan option. There was always salad bar, soup. Food was great.
The people that took care of it, like Terry. You know, Terry was great, and just everyone in Medwards administration.
Yeah.
It's definitely great.
And I worked behind the bar in fourth year in the student bar at Murray Edwards, and, you know, it wasn't the most happening of places. We didn't get a lot of footfall. I think partly because we were far out and people would just go into town if they wanted to get drinking. But it was a great place to just sit and do some work or sit and talk to friends. And a really good thing they do in exam term is, as you guys know, the tea at 3 or Skive at 5, whatever it was called, where I think during the year it's weekly, is it? But then when it gets into exam term, it's every day.
I think so. I think you're right, yeah.
Every day at like 3 p.m, there's tea and biscuits in the bar and everyone just has a nice chat, a nice break. I remember a few times going there and just lying on the floor in peak exam term, but otherwise really good vibes.
I think it definitely has this like friendly, intimate atmosphere that could also be said because it's just an all-female college and we're quite like there's really a feel of solidarity between everyone, or just because of the fact that it is a new, smaller, modern college that just brings that atmosphere straight away. Yeah.
I don't know how you guys felt about it being all female. Like, did your attitude change? I think mine did a lot. At the beginning, the first week, you know, I saw other people in their mixed colleges with these big, like, friendship groups of boys and girls, and I was, to be honest, quite bitter about it. I was like, that's so unfair that I don't get that. This is a really unfair experience. But after maybe it took me like a term to get over that. And then I was completely 100% for Medwards, for an all-girl environment. Like you said, it's so comfortable just being able to go back home and, you know, there's only like women around you. Like that for me was great.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. At first, I think when I also just had to Google the name after I found out I got pulled and I saw that it was all female, I did just feel a bit strange. That's not the university experience I expected.
Yeah.
You just don't really know what to imagine. And also it's just like so modern compared to the Cambridge that I had in mind, being one of the Hill colleges as well. But then once you get there, you realize there's just a massive sense of community as well. And I think you're absolutely right when you said there's not that much pressure on the fact that you need to get a first.
Yeah.
In other colleges, they even decide what accommodation you live in based on your academic record. So that's crazy. For us, it was more a sense of just try and make the most out of this experience. Try to be the best you can be academically.
I 100% agree. And I think for me, I actually got the email that I was received into Medwards before I knew I was even pulled. So that went great.
Nice.
I just didn't, I was like, oh, but it's a different college that I'm receiving this offer from. But I was like, yeah, absolutely. I'd be down with to go to Medwards. And at first I was a bit skeptical just because I thought, like, you know, the people in high school are very different to people in uni. And I was like, I would not like the vibe of an all-girls high school, for example.
Yeah.
But actually, I think, people just change for the better at university. We were such a big group of friends, all girls, and I had a big group of male friends for my course. So I just felt like I had the best of both worlds, and I could feel like, you know, safe and like taken care of when I was in my college, and then just do whatever I wanted outside of it.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, almost all of my close friends from my course were male. I think part of me was like, make boy friends.
Yeah.
But they just happened to be some of my best friends. I think also one thing that I would think would be good to mention is that obviously you do your lectures and seminars and stuff like that with the rest of your course, but a lot of the time, if you're doing like really small language classes when it's like 2 of you and the teacher, or supervisions when there's like 2 or 3 of you, being with women, for me, I thought was really, really beneficial. There's no like male ego in the room that you're having to compete with, or there's no sense like, oh, maybe, I mean, that's something that I know a lot of women don't have this, but I sometimes find myself in a room with men being like, they might know more than me. But in Medwards, it was very much like you had the freedom, and like there was complete lack of any sort of anxiety in that sort of respect. So you could just say what you wanted, and you didn't have to feel like you had to check yourself.
And I feel like a big part of what Medwards gave to all of us, I think, is just the confidence to like smash it as professional and like academic women. Just to give us, like, we had a lot of lectures on like imposter syndrome and figuring out what it was and if you were feeling it, and of course all of us were feeling it. But I don't know, for me it just really gave me a confidence that like I can achieve anything. I'm with this amazing group of women, and like we're just gonna keep supporting each other until, you know, we die. Like we just have this link.
No, the fact that we had like sort of role models within the college that were female figures, I think was quite important too.
And we have a great legacy. We have Tilda Swinton, Sue Perkins, Claudia Winkleman, that woman who discovered a star.
Yes, Dame
Jocelyn Bell Burnell.
Yes, exactly, that's her. Discovered the most important star in our universe whilst at Murray Edwards.
That's pretty cool.
That is very cool.
I definitely still have a lot of imposter syndrome now about other things, but it definitely, like you said, that confidence. I didn't feel like I was any less than a man, or any less intelligent, or any less worth being in a room, which I think is huge.
Oh, good stuff. I think that was some good marketing for dear college. Okay, so other than the countless hours probably spent in your room and the library studying, do you want to tell us a bit about sort of the structure of the course as well, like the lectures? What were they like? How many did you have maybe, and the supervisions?
Yeah, so I'm having to think back a bit here.
Yeah.
So I think it was about 60% literature, culture, especially in first year at least. You did like Dante's Inferno, like basic, that's the Italian text. And you did like Machiavelli and Giotto's art, like big things like that. And I don't even know, French, we did Zola, like, this is all like classic, important cultural items to those two countries. We did literature, film, art, all of that. A little bit of linguistics in Italian as well. And then sort of 40% is languages. Italian a little bit more than French, obviously, because I was learning that from scratch. And that was a really kind of fun atmosphere because there were 20 of us in my class-ish, I think. All of us starting, some people had done like an Italian GCSE, or which I thought was a little bit unfair advantage, but anyway, some people had done a little bit. But it did really feel like we were in this together. We were in that room with the same teacher 2 or 3 times a week, and then we'd have our individual language supervisions with like 2 or 3 of us and an Italian teacher just doing speaking. And French, we had the same, but slightly bigger. There was a lot more, it's a slightly bigger course, obviously. A lot more people do French at school. French is also the only one that you can't do from scratch at university.
Really?
Yeah, you have to know that one. So yeah, we did a lot of general, expanding on the language learning that we did at school, going a bit further, a little bit harder, and also doing translation classes in French and Italian. And
how do exams run? Do you have oral exams, or is it just written?
Yeah, so you have an oral exam for French and Italian, or for your 2 languages, and then your regular 3-hour written exams in the literature and cultural elements, and then translation exams as well. There might be something else I've forgotten, but I think that's it in general.
And does the structure sort of change through the years, or the exams and assessments sort of remain?
They're sort of all through the same sort of structure throughout the years. In first and second year, it's the same. Your oral exam is at the end of the year, and you have your exams. The one difference is in fourth year, you have your oral exam at the beginning of the year, which is good because, you're fresh from your year abroad, so you should be able to speak the language relatively well. So in that oral exam, you speak about the dissertation or translation project you did on your year abroad. That's the only piece of work you have to submit while you're away. So it's like a 7,000 word-ish essay, like a short dissertation on a topic you're choosing, or it's a translation project where you translate a body of work into English from your target language. So in the oral exam, you talk about that. And then the rest of your exams are at the end of the year.
Cool.
What were like the most challenging parts of the course, or maybe the one you enjoyed the most, if it was in your year abroad?
Year abroad was the peak for sure. I loved it. Otherwise, I didn't know how much I'd like learning about art, because I haven't done any art history at school or anything like that. And I really loved learning we actually in that week in Florence in first year, we had like a class on Italian art history, and I thought it was so cool. So I got a chance to do a bit of that, and in fourth year did a really cool course which is just called The Body, and it was comparative across different languages, different mediums. So I did it in French, even a bit of like Spanish, I think, English and Italian, looking at different, I think I mentioned in the exam, I mentioned Westworld, I mentioned Janelle Monáe's new song. Like, it was so cool going to that was completely so creative. And that's a good thing about fourth year, you get to do those kind of courses which allow you to break out of the box a little bit. That was really cool.
It's nice to hear it was like quite relatable.
Yeah, you can make it modern and hip.
Do you have any sort of studying tips for people?
Yes, study.
Yes. How to structure your studying?
I think I am not the best person to give advice on, how to meet a deadline, how to put lots of hours in. I tried. I think what I was really good at was going to the library and convincing other people to go for coffee with me while I was there.
The bad influence.
But, I did stuff in the end.
Well, procrastination is another form of work.
Yes.
Except you just obviously probably have higher levels of stress, but you still get things done.
Yeah, I'm a crammer as they go. I do have actually one great tip. It's an app called Forest. It uses the Pomodoro technique where you do like 20 minutes of work, which for my brain is good. I can handle that. 20 minutes focused work, put your phone down. And in that time, the app Forest grows a tree. So if you keep concentrated for all that time when you don't pick up your phone, at the end of that time, you have a little tree. And that's pretty cute, because if you touch it or you go on a text or something, your tree dies, and that is demoralizing.
I've actually heard of that app, and I've known people who use
yeah,
it. So
I think it really, really helped me, especially in fourth year. I'd set it for like 30-40 minutes or whatever sometimes, and then you have a 5 or 10 minute break, and then you start it again. That for me really helped me actually finish things in the end.
Oh wow. I think it goes to show everybody has sort of a different studying style.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I thought of when I went to Cambridge is like, oh my god, everyone is going to be a bit of a nerd here and just study the whole entire time.
Yeah.
But then you get there and you see, you know, there's some people that are a bit like
Oh, there are
that.
those people.
There's
Yeah.
for sure those kind of people. But then there's the people who are a bit more balanced, and then there's people that sounds more like you
On the other side.
on the other side of the spectrum.
I feel like Cambridge and Oxford just place so much attention to your academics. Like most of the times, they will not kind of accept a prospective student, even if they're quite balanced, if they don't have the grades to make it.
Yeah.
But given that you had the grades to make it, and you can still be that type of person who just is a crammer and has a shorter attention span. I think I'm like that as well.
Yeah.
Like people like that still make it to Oxbridge. You can definitely just, as long as you've got the grades and you've been working for that subject that you apply to, you can definitely do it.
Yeah. And I was studying around a lot of extracurricular things as well. So it wasn't just that I was being lazy and just lying in bed all day. I was doing other things and also having a social life.
Yeah, you were doing so many activities. I'm quite keen to know about like all of that, how you managed all of them together. I'm not sure what you want to discuss first. Would it be drama or girl talk or
Yeah, so
netball?
I mean, chronologically speaking, in first year, I did netball with Murray Edwards. I was on the Murray Edwards team, which was so great. I loved doing college netball. Was maybe honestly one of my highlights of university. We play different colleges, like every weekend you'll play a different college in your separate leagues, and then at the end of the year or the end of the season you have a big tournament called Cuppers, which is where it's just a big tournament with all of the college teams. And in first year we won, and it was one of the highlights of my life. Getting that, I don't think it was a trophy, but maybe it was, I don't know. Anyway, we were very, very excited to win. So that was something I really loved doing in first year. I also did a bit of journalism. I was never like on the teams or societies or like had a role at one of the newspapers, but I really loved I did a few articles. My year abroad, I did a column, so that was fun. Just me in Paris, having some thoughts. I think that was it. There was no structure to it. So
kind of like Sex and the City, but
yeah, basically, I was the Carrie Bradshaw of year abroads.
nice.
So that was that, and then towards the end of first year, I did a bit more. I was halfway through. I did a play, which was really fun. It was a Tom Stoppard play. I was playing Oscar Wilde.
I think I remember. I came to watch
Did you see it?
Was it in Trinity?
Yeah, it was in Trinity in this like really fancy old room. It was like perfect location for the play. So it was really, really fun. And I made loads of really good friends. One of those friends actually was doing a sketch show at the beginning of my second year and asked me to be in it. So that was really great connection. So there were 4 of us, and it was based on the book of Revelations, and it was called Revelations, and it was really funny, and I really, really enjoyed getting to do that. I say really funny, not because I was in it, because it was written in a really funny way.
No, I also came to see that show, and I
think
really,
I came to that one.
Yeah,
Oh, you guys are such
it was
good
very
friends.
funny, right?
So yeah, I did that, and I did another play as well at some point that year. And otherwise, in second year, I also played netball for Cambridge, because that's when they started having a third team. Before they had a first and a second team, and I'm not that good at netball, but I was good enough for third team, so I did that.
Had you tried to get into the Cambridge team in
no.
first year? No. But knowing that they had a third team made you apply?
Yeah, So when they said we're starting this third team, I was like, oh yeah, great, I'll do that. And I'm a shooter, and people always need shooters. So that was great because it meant that I got to play in varsity as well, which is a good like Oxbridge experience to have if you can get it. So that was cool. Got all the stash, Cambridge University netball.
And did you get a blue, or is it a blue sport?
Netball, I think it's a full blue now. At the time it was a half blue, which was actually ridiculous because it's the biggest women's sport. But that's only if you're in the first team, and I was in the third team, so none of that. Just, good times.
Yeah.
So netball, I did the third team again in fourth year. By that time it was more of an established thing, so it ran throughout the whole year. We did training, we did matches against local teams. I didn't actually play in the varsity match that year, but I went to see, so that was still really good. And then also in fourth year I was on the committee for the Cambridge University charity fashion show, so I was, contacting a lot of people trying to get them to sponsor it. I don't think I was very successful, but, it was still just really fun to be involved with that because I'd been to see it before and really enjoyed it.
It's a really big event every year.
And, they get, really cool people to perform. They get some really cool designers.
We got Vivienne Westwood in our first year. I remember
it was incredible. But the main society I did in fourth year was Girl Talk, which is a society that's actually founded by my friend Kitty in her fourth year when I was on my year abroad, and it hosts a lot of events for self-identifying women to hear from successful women in a really safe space. So I was organising the events in fourth year. So we had Olympic hockey players who came and spoke about their experiences winning their medals. My highlight, I think, was I organised an event called Women in Food. So I had celebrity chef Ching Hee Huang and Alex Healy Hutchinson, who owns 26 Grains in London. So that was really, really cool. Also pretty good for my journalistic training to get to interview people. So yeah, that was really cool.
You've done so much. you have such a good balance as well, drama, journalism, sports.
And like I said, I'm an all-rounder. I can't help it. I also, in first year, I went to one orchestra. I played the cello as well. And I thought, I'm going to be an orchestra kind of gal. But, I had other things to do. But maybe if I went back, I'd do that as well. But, I was already doing enough.
Yeah, for sure. How important do you think doing that much was to your Cambridge experience? And did it help with your studying a little bit? Is it good to get your mind off?
I think I won't say it helped with my studying.
No, you probably did too much, actually.
No, it didn't detract from my studying, I don't think. I think my director of studies might have said it did, but I don't think it did. For me, it was just such a great way of making friends around the university, because there's also one thing, having an all-female college, it's nice to try and make friends as much as possible outside, not just with men, but with other women from other colleges, because we spend so much time with the women at Medwards. It was cool to make friends elsewhere. So by the end of my university experience, I had at least one friend in most colleges, which was really, really good. That's through drama, sports, all of that. So yeah, I thought it was super beneficial to my experience, and I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would agree that doing kind of extracurriculars can really widen your network in just a couple of months.
Yeah, 100%.
You get to know these people, you meet up quite generally in a very organised and systematic way with training and all that. So yeah, I'd say that's definitely a big bonus, because when you get into the working world, that's kind of lost, or you have to do it yourself and try to find...
You have to pay for things. It's horrible.
Well, not that you don't pay, but most of it is subsidised, right?
Yeah. It's a lot easier, at least, at Cambridge. I was trying to look for some kind of drama company, something in London, and it's quite overwhelming, and I have not managed that yet. And I play netball in London as well, but you have to pay. I didn't have to pay for college netball or anything like that, so... Yeah, I think I definitely take advantage of all of the extracurricular stuff there, because you won't get opportunities like that again.
For sure. I think that's key. If I ever went back to Cambridge and if I went back in time, one of the things I tell myself I would do is not to like study more. No, you need to get a first. It would be to just expand my network a bit more, do more things around the university, make friends in all of the colleges, make connections. I think that's so important. Like that's the one time in your life where you're surrounded by people with similar interests who you know, from all around the world, who are so clever, who are going to go on to do amazing things in their lives. And just, you know, get to know them.
And if you're into drama at all, like Cambridge is really, really renowned for its theatre scene. I will say it can be a little bit cliquey, but you know, if you can get in it, and if you really like acting, it's a great place to hone your skills, or you know, just have fun.
By that, do you mean, just because I'm not quite familiar with it, do you mean like Footlights specifically? Because that's the big name.
Footlights is the comedy troupe that's very famous. So if you're into comedy, then for sure go for that sort of things. Like I said, I was in a sketch show. There's loads of sketch shows that happen throughout the year.
Who produced like
Hugh Laurie, Stephen Fry, that kind of vibes. Sue Perkins. Emma Thompson, there's loads. But they're also just the theatre scene is pretty big. Eddie Redmayne. Also, someone who graduated in our year is now on The Crown playing Princess Diana. So, Emma Corrin, she I think was in our year.
Oh,
or the year below. I'm not sure.
Not Murray Edwards. We also had someone in our year at Murray Edwards.
Oh yeah, she's in The Witcher.
The Witcher.
Yeah, she's doing great. So,
go you.
you can really expand your horizons with theatre at Cambridge. Clearly.
Yeah, I think it's cool you can study one thing at Cambridge and then end up doing something completely different. So, you did MML and then you went on to...
I went on to do a master's after, it was the same year I graduated. So graduated in June, started my master's in September at City University in London in magazine journalism.
So you had planned it straight away, because obviously master applications take like a whole year, right?
They do for some. This did not take that long. I think on my year abroad doing the internship at Vogue taught me that I really wanted to do journalism. I always loved writing. I wanted to be an author when I was younger. Kind of still do. But that taught me that I wanted to work at a magazine. So I applied, I think in like March or April of fourth year. Had an interview day at City in May. It was like a week before my first exam, which was great. Had an interview and then started in September.
That's great. And how do you feel like the MML degree prepared you for, I guess, like that master's, but also what you're doing now, because you're currently working at a women's magazine?
Cambridge prepared me to have a large workload, for sure, and to get things kind of done in time. I'm still not the best at that, but I try. And the master's was very different. It was a completely different set of skills, so I still had a lot to learn. It was quite humbling. But Cambridge definitely was a good basis. Like I was used to having a lot on and working hard. Yeah.
So like just juggling around different responsibilities and knowing what to prioritize and then focusing on it.
I'm guessing it helps a lot with your writing too, if you had like
I spent 4 years writing all the time. I was used to it, which is good.
And if, say, you hadn't wanted to do journalism, what would an MML degree bring you? What could you have done?
I think it's sort of like any humanities degree these days where you can go in so many different directions. I have friends who are like management consultants, like teachers, other journalists. What else? You really like, unless you want to do engineering or like medicine or some sort of vocational degree, it really does give you a lot of options, especially if the year abroad is really good if you know what you want to do. Like having that 6 months internship at a magazine was great for me because I could use that in my journalism interview for that master's. I can be like, well, obviously I've spent 6 months there, like that's great. And I know people who spent some of their year abroad at a law firm and then went on to do law, so it is super useful. I'm not saying at all that you have to do any sort, you can just study for a year and like piss around, have a great time, like you can still do that, but it can be really helpful if you do know what you want to do.
Of course.
And do you think, like, coming out of university, was it important to have like a first or a 2-1 from your degree to get into like certain jobs, or is it quite flexible when you come from Cambridge studying your course?
I think it just really depends on what job you want to do. Like, if you want to work at a really, really competitive law firm or really competitive bank, like I know some people, some like companies will say we want you to get a 2-1 or a first or whatever. In my experience, I didn't feel that I had that pressure. I didn't have it from myself, at least. Like, I never felt like I had to get a first, and no one was telling me I had to get a first. So yeah, I think you'll find something at the end of the day. Whatever you get, you'll land on your feet at some point doing something that you like. So
inspirational.
Yeah, you're welcome. Write that on a postcard.
If you did go back, what would you tell your past self? Is there anything you would change and do differently?
I think it's hard, like, looking back as a 24-year-old on an 18-year-old's perspective, because now if I went back to uni, I'd be like, I'm studying, I'm in the library all the time, like all of this. But I know that I would never have wanted to do that when I was 18. I wouldn't have wanted to spend all the time in the library. I am glad that, you know, I didn't completely stress myself out. The one thing that's good about Cambridge, or bad, depending on your perspective, is that only your fourth year counts in MML, at least. So your exams you do in your first and second year are important. They ensure you don't get kicked out. Like, it's good to, like, you know, do okay in them, but not stress yourself out too much.
Yeah, I think that's a common thing for all Cambridge degrees, that your final year is the one that is looked at. It's not a combined score like they have in American universities or anything.
So I think if I had anything to tell myself, it would just be to make sure you take advantage of the incredible, like, institution in terms of, like, academics, like the learning that you can do there. Like, you're learning from the people who wrote the books that you're studying from. Like, I'm sure you get that other universities as well, but this is really like the experts. So if you have any question that you want to ask, if you have like any, you can go and like ask for some one-on-one time with a professor, and they're like usually very, very happy to do that. So I think I would just, you know, make the most of having that at your fingertips. And like I said, with extracurriculars, just do everything that you want to do, because you can't get it that easily again.
It's such an amazing institution, honestly, and I think people should do what they can if they want to like maximize their chances of getting in, if, you know, that's their goal. Do you have any tips for those students, or like how would you prepare? How would you set up yourself for success in this case?
I think the main thing to remember is that it's not the be all and end all. If you don't get in, you're obviously going to have a great time anywhere you go, I'm sure, and that you can never be sure if you're going to get in or not. Like, I think a lot of people go in maybe a bit too arrogant. They think they're going to smash it and get in. So I would just, you know, exercise some caution. But I think if you put in the work throughout the year before you apply to Cambridge, like throughout all of your like sixth form, if you're in England, you just, you know, do some reading. And if it's a subject that you like, you're interested in, it shouldn't be too hard. You can like read a French book in English, for example, for languages. If you have any opportunities to do like an extended essay or something, I had to do one for the IB, but I think A-level people do a similar thing as well in a lot of schools. Try and do it in your subject, try and get some experience, like see if you can go to France for a couple of weeks to stay with a host family somewhere. Obviously that's not possible for a lot of people, but if you have any opportunity to go to your countries that you want to study, even like 2 weeks will completely change your like language abilities, so that could be really helpful. But if not, reading, watch some films, look at some art, have ideas about what you like and what you don't like, and yeah, just kind of have fun with it, because that's all they want to see, is that you love the subject.
Yeah, I guess it's like channeling your passion.
Yeah, just be passionate about it and do things that will help you show that passion to other people.
Thanks, Min. This has been so great. It's been so interesting learning about MML.
Yeah.
Obviously talking about our favourite college.
The best. I could go on about Medwards for very long. So
I think it's interesting that you can be friends with someone and still not know all of these details. So it was super interesting to hear everything.
Isn't it a good thing that you guys have a podcast so we can finally talk?
Right? So that we make time out of our professional life and talk.
Phew. But thanks so much for having me.
Minnie, it's been so great. Thank you so much.
Thanks for sharing.